Let's start the class with 3 ohms. Sahana bhavatu sahanau bhunaktu sahaviryam karavavahai tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We are in the 4th session of this text called as Atma Bodha, which is a preliminary text written by Śaṅkarācārya. This is a study to be done before Prasthana Trayam. Prasthana Trayam means 3 courses of study, spiritual study, which is basically Bhagavad Gita, Upanishads, and Brahma Sutra. So before you enter into the spiritual texts, the text which we do normally is Tattva Bodha and Atma Bodha. So we first finished Tattva Bodha. Now we are in the process of doing Atma Bodha. And so far we have seen 18 verses. What we have seen is the spiritual journey, how to conduct the journey. Then we saw what is the nature, what is the cause of samsara, what is the cause. Samsara means sorrow in life. What is the main reason why we feel we are sorrowful? Because we don't know our own nature, which is called as Atma. Then we have entered last week in the 3rd session, the Jnana Yoga portion, which is the process of self-inquiry. In this process of self-inquiry, what we do is we take our own experiences, we analyze them with reference to Atma. The knowledge of Atma is being given in these verses, and this is the main text. This portion is the main portion which we need to study very thoroughly. This process of inquiry is into 3 parts. First is called as śravaṇam, which is the listening part, where I listen to what is Atma. The second portion is what we have to do ourselves, which is called as manana. Manana means I reflect on whatever I have learned about Atma in my own mind. Then the third portion is called as nididhyāsana, or which is called as dhyanam, or which is called as meditation. In meditation, what I try to do is I try to separate Atma from Anatma, and then I claim the Atma portion as my real nature. And then with this 3 processes completed, I can remain or abide in Atma throughout my life. That is how Śaṅkarācārya presents this text. Let's go to the 19th verse, which we are supposed to start today. This 19th verse, in all these verses which we'll be doing today, we'll be talking mainly about the nature of Atma and how to separate Atma from Anatma. Anatma consists mainly of body, mind, and intellect. So this is a personal inquiry. It is an inquiry of who is this person who is inside this body. This verse 19 compares the moon and the clouds which move in the sky. Normally we have seen on a full moon day, the moon is there in the sky. Then the clouds are also there. When the clouds move, they cover the moon. And then what we do is we take sometimes that the moon has been completely covered. This is a mistake committed by a non-discriminating person. So what this verse says is, just as the moon appears to be running when the clouds move, if the clouds cover the moon, we say the moon is covered. If the clouds are moving, it appears to our eyes as if the sun and the moon is moving. So this appearance of the moon to be in motion is what is called as delusion. We have seen this, we have experienced this many times ourselves. So this is exactly what happens to us and Atma. What it means is when the sense organs are active, the mind is active, the Atma, the individual soul inside this body, which is ever free from any action, appears to be agitated, appears to be traveling, appears to be seeing things, hearing things, and so on. So the example is this moon is stationary, but the clouds are moving. Moon appears to move when the clouds are moving. The teaching is what? Let's use the same example and say, there is an Atma in me, which is always existing, which never moves, which is never agitated. The main thing which we have to understand is we always take our mind's agitation as our own agitation. This is where Śaṅkarācārya wants to teach us that there is a difference, there is a distance between me, the Atma, and my mind. Similarly, there is a distance between me, the Atma, and the body. What appears to be active is by wrong superimposition. In Sanskrit, it is called as adhyasa. It is due to this wrong superimposition, we mistake ourselves to be the mind or the body. All thoughts, they move in consciousness. So now we have done 3 exercises of meditation. Most of us would have realized by now that it is the thoughts which are coming and going. I, the consciousness, I, the Atma, I, the awareness principle, am always there and I am always changeless. All worries are based on assumption that I am the subtle mind. The gross body is born in Atma, and it appears when a new child is born. So when a new child is born, it doesn't mean that the child's Atma is born. Child's Atma is sat-chit-ananda swarupam. It always exists. What happens is that Atma takes a form and shape. like when we were born, we took a form of this body, but what has happened is I, the Atma, have not changed. Similarly, when the body leaves, the I, the Atma, will not change. So Śaṅkarācārya is trying to bring to us a factor which we are not aware of. That is the real teaching. Another example which we normally use also in the Vedas is the sun is stationary and the earth is what is moving. It appears as if the sun is rising and setting. We say the sun has set in the evening at 6:30, and then we get up in the morning, we say there's a sunrise at 7 o'clock. But this is an illusion. Sun never rises or sets. It is the earth which is rising, setting when it revolves around the sun. Everything moves in me, the pure consciousness. That is the ultimate essence of this verse. And this consciousness is a never changing, eternal principle. So that is about this particular verse. As we go now, we will be getting into deeper and deeper areas of Atma. This is how Śaṅkarācārya slowly builds up this text. At the end of the 68th verse, you will probably get a very, very deep insight into this nature of Atma. This 20th verse talks about an example where we see that the men, as soon as they get up in the morning, they are going to office, or people are going and working at home, children go to school. So in the presence of sunlight, what happens is activity takes place. Sunlight is always there. The teaching here is Atma's awareness principle ever exists. The changeless principle is Atma in creation. Like the sunlight, depending on the Atma, which is the nature of consciousness, our body, mind, and senses, they engage in activity. Exactly like how men go to work in the light of sun, in this light of Atma, the body, mind works. What happens when we go to sleep? It is the mind which has gone to sleep, not Atma. Generally, we say, I went to sleep. But that is a wrong sentence when you come to the spiritual field. The spiritual side, does not have any of the three states: waking, dream, sleep. They all belong to the mind. Another example generally we take is of the TV screen. See, the TV screen is like Atma. It never changes, it is always there. But the shows, that means the movies in the TV screen, they keep on changing. The waking, dream, and sleep are the movies which happen on the screen of Atma. So Atma is therefore called as a substratum or adhishthanam in Sanskrit. Atma is also the only source of consciousness. It is in the presence of consciousness only. The body borrows, the mind borrows the consciousness from Atma. And then throughout the day, it is acting. And then when it goes to sleep, the mind goes to sleep. The consciousness factor, what it has borrowed from Atma, what it has got reflected from Atma goes back to Atma. That reflected consciousness goes back to consciousness. That is why we say we are in our own nature when we go to sleep. Because the body and the mind do not have any consciousness of their own. They borrow this consciousness from Atma, which is an independent principle. So everyone is dependent on Atma, the pure awareness, which is the higher level of consciousness It is our own higher level. We should learn to understand that we have a lower level of consciousness, which is in Jagrat Avastha, in the waking state. We have a still lower level in dream, and we have a lowest level when we go to sleep. Compared to these three levels, which we already know, waking, dream, and sleep, Śaṅkarācārya is introducing us to a higher level. There is one more level which we are not aware of. The purpose of this study of spiritual study is to learn more and more about that nature of Atma, which I am not aware of today. Let's go to the next verse. These are simple verses which, as we bring these thoughts in our mind and think ourselves in the lines of the scriptures, we ourselves will find an ability to discriminate between our mind and Atma. The 21st verse says, fools, because they lack in the power of discrimination, that means people who are ajnanis, people who don't have the knowledge of Atma, what do? They superimpose on the self the nature of existence, consciousness, knowledge. These three words, existence, consciousness, and ananda, that means sat-chit-ananda, which is in verse number 9 of Atmabodha. You must remember this throughout our study of spiritual science. We must keep these three words always in our mind, and whenever we want to think about our own nature, as we learn more and more about Atma, we should be able to understand what are these three principles and how do I claim this to be my own nature. So it says that all the varied functions of the body and senses, just as we attribute the blue color and the light to the sky, that means how we superimpose skies on a pure sky which is colorless, we say that the sky is blue. The blueness comes from the particles which are reflected by the sunlight. Sky by itself, space by itself is colorless. What it appears because of the superimposition of the dust particles, which is transferred to the pure space. Let's apply this to Atma. Atma is pure existence, pure consciousness. What happens to Anatma? Anatma means what? Body, mind, and the intellect. If you remember the Om chart, BMI is the first level of our consciousness. So what happens is we superimpose the functions. That means the body has the prana shakti. It has the digestive power. It has the thinking, mind has the thinking power. Mind has the emotional power. What happens is the power which belongs to Atma, we transfer it to the body, mind, and intellect and say that they all are me. Atma is ever free from punyam and papam. Why is it free from punyam and papam? Because it is ever the akarta. Akarta means it is never a doer of action. The doer of action is the reflected consciousness. It is the ahamkara. So two principles are there in the body. One is called as aham. Aham in Sanskrit means I, the Atma. The second principle is the reflection of I in the mind, which is called as ahamkara, or in English it's called as ego principle. So the main problem we have is we take the ego as my real nature, and we are not aware of I, the pure I, Atma. This is what is the knowledge getting. This is the knowledge which Śaṅkarācārya is trying to build up. Ahamkara has the functions of the body, mind, and intellect. Jiva means the soul, the spirit which is there in each body, consists of 5 components. The gross body, the subtle body, which is the mind and intellect, and the causal body, the karana shariram, for people who have done the Atmabodha, causal body, is the storehouse of all the imprints of our previous actions, which are the imprints, are the samskaras which are there in the jiva's account, for which he has come into birth in this body to exhaust those impressions which are called as samskaras or vasanas. So the reflecting material are the 3 bodies: the gross body, the subtle body, causal body. They don't have consciousness in them, but they are able to reflect the consciousness. First, the mind gets the reflected consciousness, and then it passes on to the gross body for doing actions. We have seen how this flows through when we did the Atmabodha. Original consciousness is always free from all actions. It is not a doer, it is not an enjoyer also. So the doer and enjoyer principle is the reflected consciousness. Don't worry if you don't understand the reflected consciousness at this stage. As we learn more and more about Atma and we go into the deeper texts, this reflection of the original consciousness will become more and more clear. So the jiva consists of 2 factors, which is the reflecting medium, which is the gross inert body, and the reflected consciousness, which makes this body alive. Once the reflected consciousness is there in the mind, then there are 2 things which happen. I say I am the knower. I am, I-ness comes in the body, and my-ness. My-ness means this house belongs to me, this car belongs to me. All this is connected to the I thought which is there in the mind. In the presence of this Atma, these 2 things, which is the reflected medium and reflected consciousness, they get energized. And then they act and reap the results of action. There are only 2 results of any action. One is called as sorrow, another is called as happiness. So I feel joy out of an action, I feel sorrow out of an action. And throughout the day, what is happening is the sense organs are interacting with the sense objects in the world. These 2 things are the products of Ishvara. That is, there is a Lord who is the controller of the 5 elements. He is the one who is giving us these 5, who is controlling these 5 elements in this universe. Why is the universe created? So that the jivas, the souls, can come and exhaust their punyam and papam, or merit and demerit, which they have accumulated in their life. They come for a short period of maybe 40 years, 60 years, 30 years, 10 years, 2 years, 1 year. It all depends on the merit and demerit of the jiva, which is there in that body. What about the Atma? It is ever the Sakshi. Sakshi means it is free from all the impurities of the body or the mind or the Karana Sharira or the causal body. Being at home with myself is called as moksha. Moksha is the fourth goal of all human beings. Dharma, Artha, Kama. Dharma means leading a life of morals. That is called as dharma, living a right life. We know we discriminate right and wrong in life. That is dharmic life. Artha and Kama, Artha is required, wealth is required to maintain the body. And entertainment, Kama means it is the third goal, which every human being wants to enjoy certain things in life. That is acceptable in the Vedas. And the last one is called as moksha, which is what is being referred here. Moksha means I don't want sorrow in my life. I want only a happiness. How do I get this happiness? That is the goal of moksha. Freedom from sorrow or attainment of happiness. Both mean the same thing. That means I want permanent happiness. I don't want happiness mixed with sorrow. So what Śaṅkarācārya now is teaching us is that the ego factor, I explained before that the ego is the ahamkara, is in a temporary medium called as the waking state or the dream state or the sleep state. This ego comes only because that Atma gets reflected in the mind. The real Atma is beyond the ego. That is what is said in this verse. And like an elephant throws mud on itself, if you have been to Kerala or any other place, Thailand, for example, you see elephants there. And if they are bathing in water, after bathing, they look shiny. But as soon as they come to the land, they start throwing the mud on themselves. Why? Because they want to keep the temperature of the body in balance. So this is an example. Like that, we throw the properties of the body, mind, and intellect on the self. The elephant does that to maintain the temperature. So we throw this. What happens to us is we forget to claim our real nature, but we throw the properties of the mind mainly as if it's me. So by doing this Atma and Atma Viveka, that means discrimination in meditation, I learned to separate the emotions of greed, jealousy in the mind, and then claim Atma as my nature, Swarupa. So that was the 21st verse. The 22nd verse is another example. See, Śaṅkarācārya provides a lot of simple examples from nature to make us think and then see and discriminate. See, what we have to do is use these examples and see for ourselves what is this mind and who am I. Due to ignorance, the trembling that belong to the water are attributed to the reflected moon dancing on it. Suppose you see a lake and you see the reflection of the moon on the lake. After some time, a breeze blows and the water moves. An ignorant person will say that the moon is moving. That means when he sees the dancing moon, because of the movement of water, in ignorance, he will say the moon is moving. We may laugh at this example, but this is exactly what happens to us when the mind moves in Atma. the still water, the still moon on the sky is like the Atma. The reflected moon in the lake is like our mind. So when the mind is turbulent, we say, oh my God, I am very, very agitated today. I'm very emotional. I'm very sorrowful today. So the water trembles when the wind blows. The reflection of moon in water dances when wind is disturbing it. Similarly, body, mind, and intellect, they tremble due to the wind of karma phalam. What is the wind in our case? In our case, it is the karma phalam, which is called as prarabdha karma. In Atmabodha, I explained to you 3 types of karmas. Sanchita karma, which is the totality of all the fruits of action which an individual soul has to enjoy in different births. Out of those totality of say 100, 20 are taken out for this body to enjoy in this birth, which is called as prarabdha karma. So this prarabdha karma is what is the cause of all these agitations in the mind. It comes and goes. There is no agitation which will remain for too long. If sorrow comes, you must remember that happiness will come. For example, if during the COVID time, we have been thinking it's going to last forever. But then after 2-3 months, we say, yes, we are going to come out of it. So similarly, all situations in life will have an end. If not in this birth, next birth. Doership is explained here in this verse. Once I mistake myself to be the mind, a guilt of omission and commission can't be avoided. I want to do so many things for my parents, but I don't do it. That is called as omission. And I feel sorrowful. Oh, I didn't do that for my mother. I didn't do that for my father. I didn't do this for my sister. I didn't do this for my boss. We feel guilty of omissions of actions. But this belongs to the mind. It doesn't belong to me, the Atma. Similarly, commission also. I did this to so-and-so. I did this to so-and-so person. Therefore, again, I feel hurt. When I feel hurt, it is not me, it is my mind which is having the thoughts of being hurt or being guilty. So this discrimination between me, the Atma, and the mind, once we are able to get this discrimination, we will remain aloof from our mind, agitations, and sorrow. Doership, which is superimposed on Atma because of ignorance, on ever-free Atma, and when this Atma is without the medium of body and mind, it is ever free. Actions belong to the matter principle, not to the spiritual principle in creation. So in the entire study, we have to discover there is a spiritual side to the whole universe. I look outside the window, I can see the world. I see my own body and I see my own, I can feel my own emotions. But in outside world and in this body, there is one factor which is called as sat-chit-ananda, which is a common factor, which is called as Atma when it comes to the body. And when it comes to the whole universe, it is either called as Paramatma or it is called as Brahman. So here in this verse, the doership of the body and mind, which is transferred to Atma, I learn how to give it back to the body and mind and remain as Atma, which is never doing any actions. The consciousness, the awareness principle in our body and mind is always separate. I must learn how to separate this awareness principle and abide in it throughout my life. This is the teaching, the core of the teaching of Atma Vidya. And this level, when we reach this level of pure awareness, it is called as Paramarthikam. Paramarthikam means it is a higher level. It is an absolute level which does not come and go. The relative level is the Vyavaharika or the activity level, which comes and goes. I, the Atma, remain the same in waking, dream, sleep. I, the Atma, remain the same in birth of the gross body, in the passing away of the gross body, in the travel of the mind to take another body. That is the essence of this knowledge of Atma. Slowly we will learn how this happens and how I can get this knowledge deeper and deeper so that I can remember this all the time and never get shattered in life. Ultimately, this knowledge should help me in life to remain in balance, to face the consequences of life as it comes. Verse 23. This talks more about how to separate the mind and me, the Atma. A very beautiful example, which is a beautiful knowledge which is taken out from the scriptures again. See, the Atmabodha and Atmabodha, they depend on Upanishads. The knowledge, the real knowledge of Atma is mentioned in a text which is called as Upanishad. Later on, I will have a session sometime to give you a broad map of all the scriptural texts which are available in the Indian philosophy. Sometime I'll take that session so that you are clear what we are studying and where we are progressing and what is there. The study of the scriptures is can be lifelong. It can, but you don't have to remain lifelong for getting the benefits. It's very, very deep science. There are so many texts available to study. All these texts, they help us to go deeper and deeper into our core personality. So in this verse, what it says is the attachment which the mind has to the sense objects, the desires we all have during the waking state, the pleasure, the pain, they're all perceived to exist as long as the mind functions. This is very important. See, these are all the important new discoveries which we make in life. So I learned to say, yes, there is something in my body. When it is functioning in the waking state, I have these thoughts of pleasure, of pain, of desires, of attachment, relationships. But what happens in sleep? 8 hours a day, 8 hours of the time we are in sleep. 8 hours is a long time. You can watch 3, 4 movies, but then we are sleeping and we are not even aware that we are there. And what happens in sleep? No emotions, no painful sessions, no pleasure, no nothing, because the mind has gone to sleep. So when the mind ceases to exist, because it has lost the power of the Atma and it wants to rest, then what happens is I have no desires. I don't have any samsara. I don't have any sorrow in that 8 hours. So what it means is the logical thinking is that they don't belong to me, the Atma. Sorrow belongs to the mind, but not to Atma. So the example here is waking state and sleep state. That is what is the example, which we have just now covered. the teaching is all sorrow belongs to the mind and not to Atma. I am the awareness like space is never attached to the mind, body, or objects in the universe. So in the sleep state, what happens is I am not even aware of this entire city of Singapore, this entire universe, this cosmos. I'm not aware. But do I exist in sleep or not? Yes. I exist in sleep. I am not aware of the world, body, mind, nothing. But I exist. That is called as Sat principle, pure existence principle. And that is what is slowly our mind has to realize that is my real nature. Before the body was born, I was pure existence. When the body is gone, I am still there as pure existence principle. That is an eternal principle. That is the spiritual light. We'll see the more aspects of it in a few verses. From now, we will see what is that light. The power of Maya. Maya means there is, you see, what we see outside as nature, that nature is called as Maya. This nature is consisting of three gunas. Three gunas means it has got sattva, rajas, and tamas, which I briefly explained to you when I did the Atmabodha. So one of the gunas is of the Maya. That means this, there is a power in this nature which belongs to the five elements. Now, one of the powers is attachment. Another power is aversion. So the mind gets attached to certain things. Mind withdraws from certain things. It is not Atma. Atma gets identified with this mind, and then I call this mind, which is the ego I, as my real self. This severance of this connection, what do I do in meditation? In meditation, I try to find out what is this reflected I, which is nothing else but a thought. Reflected I is just thoughts coming and going in our awareness principle. So I disidentify and I claim I am ever free Atma, and I then, even when I am in the waking state, I am always aware that I am that pure self which is immortal. This is the only security in life. It is not the bank balances we have which gives us security. Of course, it gives security in the relative field. But the ultimate security in life, the ultimate happiness in life only comes from the knowledge of immortal Atma. Even the fear in our mind, fear goes away completely the moment we are able to claim Atma as my real nature. These are all tested facts of life which are being taught to us by teachers like Śaṅkarācārya. The next verse, each of these verses has got some ideas in it. As we study these 68 verses of this text, there are few verses, few aspects of Atma which will appeal to you. So maybe you should just write in a small piece of book, a notebook, you can just carry it with you, or just whenever you study, one or two points which strikes you tremendously, which you would like to think in future, you keep a note of it. And whenever you get a chance, just go through these 1 or 2 pages which you have jotted down. Let this become an exercise for each one of us personally as we learn more and more about this Atma. There are some very, very striking examples. You will see as we go by in this text. Just as luminosity is the nature of the sun, there are three examples taken here in this verse. One is the sun and its luminous nature. Then water and its coolness. Then fire and heat. Okay, these are three examples. This is the natural intrinsic nature of the substances, sun, water, and fire. Similarly, Atma's nature is existence. Existence without the body. Existence without the mind. Existence without the universe. That is the nature of Atma. The second nature is pure consciousness. Pure consciousness means I am. I am is aware to me. I am is the I exist and I am conscious is common to all of us. There is no need for anybody to come and tell us that I exist and I am conscious. These two are intrinsic nature in us. This is what we need to understand as my real self. Bliss, happiness without objects as in sleep. In waking state, this bliss is covered. But in my real state, in my real nature, when there are no thoughts in Vedanta, they say that when our mind is agitated, the I, Atma, sees itself as agitated. But when the mind is not there, as in sleep, the Atma realizes its own pure nature of bliss. That is what the Vedanta teaches us. This Atma is nirgunam. Nirgunam means there is no properties, whereas the body and mind have got properties. They are subject to gradation. That means the mind may be dull, mind may be bright, but the Atma has no gradation. So there is absolutely no gradation, means the same Atma which you have, which your sister has, which your mother has, which I have, is the same. There is no gradation, and it is all pervading. So I can easily say that Atma is common. That is the only linking factor amongst all the human beings, among the entire universe. What is common factor is Atma. Like we all breathe. The air we breathe is a common factor. It's this air which is common to people in Africa, America, Japan, China, India, Singapore. Like that, the common factor in all of us is the spiritual being in us, which is one, which is not many. The bodies are many, but the spirituality inside, the content is only one. This Atma manifests in three states: waking, dream, and then this Atma gets this matter principle manifests and matter principle unmanifests. But the Atma is always existent. So transactions may end in sleep, but it is not the end of my existence as Atma, which is my real nature. So three examples, again to remember: the sun being luminous, the water being cool, and the fire having the heat. Atma's nature is pure existence, pure consciousness, and pure ananda, which is bliss without sorrow. That is the teaching in verse number 24. Then a question might arise: how does this jiva come into existence every day? Okay, Atma is there, ever existence. It is pure consciousness. It is independent. Then we say that the body is also experienced, but it is inert, exactly like a wall, like a table, like a chair. Body and is inert. mind also is inert by itself. How does this combination happen? How do I come to know that I know factor? This verse explains that by the indiscriminate blending of the two. Indiscriminate, we must be very careful. We must understand that once we are able to discriminate, then there's no problem. Then the indiscrimination happens between Atma, which is an aspect, the existence consciousness of the self, and Anatma, which is the intellect. There rises a thought, which is called the notion of I know. This is a science a little bit more deeper into the aspect of how we experience our mind every day. So as I said before, every day in the morning when we get up, it is this thought. The basic thing, what happens is that the Atma's light, the spiritual light, shines in our mind first. And then this notion, I know, is born. So there is a spiritual light, the mind exists, the mind which has gone to sleep, it becomes awake. Why does the mind become awake? The mind becomes awake due to the pressure of actions and results, which is called as karma phalam. So when the mind becomes quiet, you want to go to sleep in the afternoon, your activity has stopped, your sorrows and happiness have stopped temporarily. Again in the morning when you get up, again the activity starts. So what happens is Atma is like the face, and the thought or a buddhi, the intellect, is like a mirror. So this light of Atma gets reflected in the reflecting medium, and then we get a notion, I know. If Atma and buddhi is not in proximity, there will be no reflection. Why I am called Sakshi? Sakshi means I am a witness. I am called Sakshi because I am required for every transaction. But at the same time, I'm not involved in a transaction. Suppose there is an observer looking out of the window down the building. Activity is going on. People are playing, people are talking. He is not involved in the activity. He is only looking. He is only a witness principle. So similarly, Atma is a witness principle for this entire activity of the body and mind with the world. It doesn't get involved in it. The cognitive transaction requires triputi. Cognitive means the activity of the body and mind requires three things. One, there is a knower of the action. Then there is a known object and the process of knowing. All these three is happening in the mind. And there are two types of actions which go on in this body. One is from the organs of knowledge, which are the knowing principles. Knower, known, and the process of knowing is with the help of the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin. The organs of action, here when this process is going on, we call this process as jnata, jneyam, and jnanam. These are three Sanskrit words. What it means is knower, known, and the knowing principle, the process of knowing. Then the second type of action which is happening is through the organs of action. And I use the organs of action, I'm called as a doer. I use an instrument called could be the hands or the legs. Then these are called as karanam or instruments. Then the actual action is called as karma. So Atma is a witness to the two types of actions, one through the organs of knowledge, another through the organs of action. The mind and the thoughts. Mind is the general, there is a general awareness in the mind, and then from the mind, certain thoughts are formed depending on what the object is seen. Okay, so all the thoughts from the objects, they are seen by through a vritti, through a specific mode called as the operation of thoughts. We have this operation of thoughts for sound, for form. So what happens is these thoughts from the sense objects, they come into the mind through the sense organs, and the reflection in the mind is called as samanya chidabhasa. That means general awareness. That means I am the pure awareness called as Atma. The mind gets the reflection of the pure awareness, which is called as the general awareness. Then when I see the objects, the reflection which is formed in the thoughts is called as the Visesha Chidabhasa. Visesha means specific reflection. So you can see this now, how transactions happen. Transaction happen when the knower comes in the waking state and the mind is active. The transaction ends when the knower goes off to sleep and the mind is asleep. And the transactions are the projections of in the dream. What happens is transactions are there but without sense organs. That is why we say mind is semi-active. In the waking state, it is completely active, fully active. When the sense organs are open and the mind is functioning. So in this, when the sense organs are in a passive condition and the mind is active, it's called as dream. What happens to the Atma in all these cases? It remains just a lender of consciousness and existence. That's all. So sat-chit-ananda represents the three natures of Atma. That getting reflected in the mind becomes the factor I know. That means the jiva becomes alive. Then it carries out transactions during the day. Again, it goes to sleep. Again, what happens is the chit remains the same. That means sat-chit-ananda is ever the same. This is just a same idea which is being explained a little bit more in detail. The same idea, knower, knowing instrument and the known objects are involved. Chit, the pure consciousness, lends consciousness to the mind, then sense organs, and then it goes into the sense objects. What happens is the objects, they create a sense stimuli, or in the form of color, form, sound. They reach the sense organs. Through the sense organs, then what happens is the mind gets to receive these stimuli of the sense objects, and then they become known to the mind. So it is a reflected material. That means it is the mind which is knowing the universe. It is the mind which is dropping the universe in sleep. I, the Atma, am the pure consciousness. Existence never change. Very important factor. This whole study, this chart which you have seen here, study a little bit in detail and slowly you will get to know this is the whole life. The whole life, how transactions happen, is explained in this beautiful chart. So with that, we will stop today the aspect of our study of Atma Bodha. Very nice study to end. This requires a little bit more study in depth of what is Atma, the pure light, and what is the reflected light in the mind. This type of study is not available in any other psychology books, or this is what is called as coming from the Vedas. Vedas are scriptures, but to study that, a science has been developed, which is called as Vedanta, which is what is this whole study. So we will continue the study of Atma in our next week. We'll start from verse number 26 onwards. So verse number 15 to 30 is the nature of the Atma. How do I discriminate between Atma and Anatma?